Hello and welcome to another blocking video. So today I'm going to block a sweater that's just come off my needles. So I've soaked the sweater in lukewarm water with a bit of wool wash, then I rolled it up into a towel. I've tried to squeeze out as much water as possible. Because I've already sewn the sweater together, this is the whole sweater. So normally I would recommend blocking a sweater before you sew together, so block the pieces individually. But I do actually find it easier sometimes to join all the pieces first and then block the sweater, because it makes it easier to see whether the front and the back are the same size. So on this particular sweater, I knitted the front of the body and the sleeves in one piece, and the back of the body and the sleeves in one piece. So it's got dolman sleeves, and it is just knitted in two pieces. So I joined the shoulders and the top of the sleeves by using a 3-needle cast off. Then I seamed it down here at the underarm and the side seam, and then I knitted on the neck edging, and I just need to pick up a knit on an edging around the armhole, but I want to make sure I know exactly how wide the garment's going to end up first, so I don't make the sleeves too long. Because that was one of the things I was slightly worried about as I was knitting it. Unblocked, it doesn't look like the sleeves are going to be too long. It looks like they might be slightly too short. So we'll see what happens when I block this. So I'm going to tilt the camera down so you can see what I'm doing. And at the time of recording this sweater doesn't have a name. So I will put all the details below when this video is published. Okay, so I have got some blocking wires, I've got some pins, and I have some of my knit blockers, which are like this. I have some markers in this sweater, some padlock removable stitch markers, and that is because there are certain points that I need to measure to. So that's why those are there, and I'm going to leave those in place until I block the sweater and it's dry and I've taken kind of the final measurements. So I'm just stretching the sweater out. I'm going to start on the side here, so I'm going to take one wire and go through the side here, so along the side seam. It does have increases. It actually has increase alongside this lace panel, so the side is not completely up, it is slightly out. And then at the underarm I've cast some extra stitches. So this goes slightly diagonally. So let's just make sure the side seam is here, and then I'm going to take this through and come out at the underarm. Like that. So I just want to make sure that the side seam, this is lined up with the side seam, so that I don't end up with the seam at the front or the back. Then I'm going to take a couple of these and just put a couple of these in. I don't want to stretch it too much lengthwise at the moment, so we'll just start with that, and then I may have to adjust that later. So I'm going to work along here now. I'm going to find the top seam, there it is, find the shoulder, top of the sleeve seam, and again make sure that's lined up with my blocking wire. So I don't want the seam at the front or at the back of the fabric, so I've just got to make sure it's lined up. And then I don't actually have any shaping, I don't have any shoulder shaping or anything. So I'm going to line this up with the top of my board, because then I can make sure that this is straight. And I also got to stretch this because I want this lace to stretch a little bit. So I'm going to stretch that out a little bit. I may have to stretch this side more when I finish putting out the top. So I don't need to put these really close together. You can use pins if you don't have these, but I find these quite useful. And then I'm going to take that one out of there because I need to stretch this, and there we go, that's a bit better I think. And then I'm going to use these along here at the bottom. I could put a short wire through at the bottom of the sleeve here, but I'm going to use these. There we go. And then along this edge is where I need to pick up stitches and probably do some decreases, because there's no shaping on the sleeve. I just worked up to here and then I cast on stitches. So this bit is quite wide, and I want to, when this is blocked, I want to try it on, see how far down the my arm the sleeve goes, and then decide what I'm going to do with it. So I'm going to be picking up stitches along that edge. So what I'm going to do is just to pull it. Now there are 2 layers there, because it is the front and the back. So I just got to make sure I pull both layers out. And I don't have to make sure that this edge is really neat, because I will eventually pick up stitches there. So I don't really have to worry about making sure it's really neat. But I don't want to be too awful either. Now I find that the edge is quite often a bit looser than this bit, so I may have to pull this bit down a little bit more. Let's have a look. There we go. In the middle. When you put these in without any wire, you have to be a bit careful, because if you stretch it too much, you may end up with like sort of scallops like that, and obviously I don't want that. So let's just pull this over. So I'm making sure I'm grabbing both the top and the bottom bit of the fabric. Okay, there we go. Then I'm just going to put that one in there. I'm going to put another one of these in there, and then I'm going to swap that for another one of the smaller ones. There we go. Okay, so that's this side roughly pinned out. I may have to adjust that later, so I'm going to slide this over. But before I do the top, I'm just going to put this wire in along the side here and out through the fabric of the underarm. So I'm going to line this up again like I did before with the seam at the shoulder. And normally I prefer to stretch the body first, but because of the way this is worked, I've decided to start at the top. Oh, I just noticed here, well, you can see that, but I caught the wire through some of the lace on the back piece. I'm just going to measure to make sure that I have enough space here. What I quite often do when I have to stretch something to a certain length is that I put my tape measure down, work out how far it needs to be. So say it had to come to here, I will just put a pin where I need to be. And I know this is probably a little bit off camera at the moment, but I will show you in a minute. So I'm going to do that, put in my tape measure. I need to stretch the sleeves to 70 centimeters. So I put a pin in just so I know where that is, and then I'm going to get one of these ready, and then I want to just make sure I line up the seam at the top here with the edge of my wire. Okay, and I'm going to stretch this out as long as it needs to be first, and then I'm going to put some knit blockers along here. If you don't have knit blockers, you can use pins, but I have all these different tools, so I like to use them. Okay, and then this depth here needs to be 35 centimeters. Which is roughly there. And there is a chance that after I've knitted on the sleeves, sleeve edging, that I need to block this again, but I'm hoping I can just seam the sleeve edges and that'll be it. So that's how far down I need to make this come. So feel like I'm stretching this sleeve a little bit too much on this side, but we'll see what it's like when I've finished it. So I'm just stretching this sleeve down as much as I can, or till the same measurements as I had on the other side. And then I'm going to pull the sleeve out on the side here. So again, I will start at the top. Okay, so I'm going to stretch this out and pin it. Another reason why I like to do this before I knit on the edging is because if it's not 100% neat, it doesn't matter too much, because I am going to knit on an edging there afterwards. There we go. Okay. Okay, so I'm just going to measure straight across because I'm slightly worried that I've stretched the top a little bit more than I really need to. Now I'm going to be stretching this down and pinning at the sides. Okay, that's just done roughly. So I need to block out this bottom bit. Normally I would use blocking, the knit blockers, but I used to have 2 packs of these white ones, and then I bought another pack and they came with these coloured ones. And then I packed them away last autumn at one point, and now I can't find my second pack of the white ones, which I really need at the moment. So I'm going to use a blocking wire. Now at the bottom there are several rows of garter stitch, and then there's lace. And I know that if I go through the edge of the garter stitch, sometimes it can make the edging look a little bit untidy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the lace. Now I have to make sure I go through the front and the back of the sweater. So at the side here, I'm just going to make sure the front and the back of the lace match up, because there is a little bit of garter stitch at the edge here. So I want to just make sure that the front and the back of the lace match up. So what I'm doing is I'm actually matching the first yarn over on the front and the first yarn over on the back. So that's there. Then I'm going to go into that yarn over, and then I'm going to try and come in and out of the yarn overs at the bottom here above the garter stitch edging. I'm going to try and see if I can match up the front and the back. It's a little bit difficult to get the camera so you can see this up close. So I'm using the yarn overs as part of the fabric to put my wires in and out of. I'm just occasionally looking on the back just to make sure I haven't gone too far up, that I'm on that first row of lace. Okay. What you have to be careful about when you go under 2 layers of fabric like this is to make sure that you're not catching any other loops on the bottom fabric, that you're just going in and out of the fabric like you're supposed to, and not catching other bits of stitches, because that could pull out strands and look quite messy. So I'm just going to pull this down. I've got to try and make sure that this is straight, so I'll pull it down in the middle. I'll use one of those. I will pull this down. I will check the measurements, that this is the same measurements from the top. I don't have to be like, because I can't pull it as far down as the edge of this board, edge of the blocking mat, because that would have been a lot easier. Okay. So I could do with another neck blocker there, but I've run out, so I'm going to use pins instead. Okay, so now I need to do a bit of measuring, just make sure that this is okay. So the wires don't go all the way out to the side, it's just the lace, but the stocking stitch is stretched enough that it doesn't really matter. And I haven't stretched this garter stitch at the bottom, but it's obviously being stretched a bit because the lace is being stretched. So I'm just making sure that that garter stitch looks neat. And then I'm going to do a bit of measuring. So I'm just going to kind of tidy it up a bit, check the measurements, write out any of the measurements I need for the pattern at this point, and then I'm going to leave it to dry. And if you have any questions, just ask.